Hello, everybody out there. Kevin Hopp, your host here on Hop on Calls, joining in from sunny San Diego. I'm really excited this week because Hop on Calls is going international. I love travel. I love going all over the world. I don't often get a chance to work with people that are across the pond. Everyone give a warm welcome to Charlotte Loyd here.
Ooh,
Charlotte,
Kevin.
where in the world are you? Where in the world are you?
So, I'm British, but I'm actually based in Madrid in Spain. It is 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening, and I'm really stoked to be here.
Love that. Okay, so you're in Madrid, Spain.
Yeah.
Charlotte, tell the audience, if they've never heard of you before, they've never met you, why are you on a cold calling show? Like, what's your background in sales? What's the 1 minute story of Charlotte?
The 1 minute story of Charlotte. Okay, so I've been in sales for 20 years now, and you're probably thinking, what's she doing cold calls? And the message I want to give across to people is that you should be doing cold calls if you're in sales. It doesn't matter how much experience you have, right? I started back in, I think it was 2003. So doing telesales, that was my role. I had to make, I don't know how many dials back then, but it was something like 200 in an hour without any power dialers. So just dialing like the old phones, no cell phones. Different, things were different back then. I've done obviously a lot of face-to-face, a lot of travel. So my previous role compared to where I am now, I was doing a lot of events, trade shows, slightly less cold calling, but still, using the phone. And, I think today's sellers who are millennials and post-millennials, they kind of think that they don't need to use the phone. And you do need to use the phone, right? You do need to make those calls. You do need to set up that meeting. What I say to everybody is the objective of your cold call, go in with the mindset that you're not booking the meeting, right? You're going in, you're having a conversation, you're being real, you're being relevant, you're helping that person, right? You want to shine a light on a problem that they have and then sort of mention your solution, but obviously you want to get the next meeting. So if you're going with the mindset that you're not going to book the meeting, that you're talking to a friend, you then relax, your tone of voice is better, your timing is better, you pause. I used to do everything to sort of mess up my cold calls. And, sometimes I still have a bad cold call, but the more you do it, the more experience you have, the more you just sort of eat that frog and eat it 2 times a day, 2 hours a day, then, you're gonna have success.
I love eating frogs. Frogs are my favorite. In fact, frogs are my favorite. Awesome. And I love that you don't necessarily work in technology sales. I'm trying to bring in people from outside the SaaS world. I have a really large SaaS audience. Everything I've ever done is in SaaS companies, the whole Silicon Valley type sale. But you work for a bit of a different company. So talk to us a little bit about who you're calling on and what the story is there in a 1 minute synopsis. 1 minute synopsis.
Yeah. Okay. 1 minute synopsis. So I work for a company, it's part of Global Data. We are a content or marketing technology solution. So we create content, we tell stories digitally, and we actually generate leads. Okay. So we don't always talk about that, but or phrase it that way. And a lot of, you're talking about sort of SaaS. Yes, this is, a software that that sort of my prospects will get, once we start telling the story for them, they'll be able to then have warm conversations and do warm outreach as opposed to doing cold outreach, all from content. And, a lot of the SaaS sales techniques you can apply to you don't have to just be selling to SaaS to use a lot of these techniques, right? You can use them in, if you're not selling SaaS. So I think it's really important to say, and state, because a lot of people think, it's SaaS sales, I can't use these cold calling techniques, or, they're not going to work. They do, right? Because what you're saying in your cold call is you're talking to another human. And, that's not going to really change depending on the industry that you're speaking to. So I speak to governments, right? Economic development, so locations. So I might speak to San Diego, I might be speaking to Ohio, I might be speaking to Charleston, or I might be speaking to somebody somewhere in Arizona. But ultimately, I speak to governments, to heads of marketing, VPs of marketing, VPs of economic development, which is essentially business development. So it's sales and marketing and the personas that I am calling on my cold calls.
Love it. Love it. And check it out. I did a little shout out. Everyone's shouting out where they're tuning in from here. We've got people from all over the world. Ireland, the Netherlands, St. Louis, Missouri. Matthew Herring tuning in on an airplane. Shout out to that. We got Canada, Santa Monica, California. Love that. Well, Charlotte, thanks for bringing the globe to Hop on Calls. We've got, I know your audience is very international. So let's dive right in here. I want to make sure that we can get some real live cold calls for everyone tuning in. If it's your first time, check it out, Hop on Calls. Just so you know, you're not going to be able to hear both sides of the audio. Why? It's called, lawyers and laws, and we can't just, cold call someone and put them live on a show without their consent. So you can hear both sides of the audio edited into a beautiful short podcast. Every week, there are 2 podcasts that come out. Hop on Calls. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, on and on, Amazon, wherever you listen to podcasts, look up Hop on Calls and check out the best moments from today's show and every other show in the past. Also, let's give a quick shout out to our title sponsor today, Kixie. Charlotte and I are both going to be using Kixie's power dialing feature today to make a lot of calls in a short period of time. Kixie is an all-in-one business telephony solution to serve your internal teams, your support teams, but most importantly, your sales teams. This power dialer feature is serious. We're going to have a lot of conversations. We're going to make a lot of calls. Shout out to Kixie. If you have not tried it out, I don't know what you're doing. All right. You ready, Charlotte? Let's both hit go, and we'll see who can get the first conversation of the day. A note for everybody, I'm going to be calling for my client, Silver Sky Technologies, today. I'm not going to be calling for myself. Because last week when we did this, I had really good conversations because I'm calling IT managers as opposed to
Hi, John. I know you're not expecting my call. Do you mind if I take a few moments to tell you why I'm calling, and you could decide if it makes sense if we should continue speaking? So typically when I speak to economic developers like yourself at cities similar to Seattle, they're focused on several priorities. One of them is to reach companies earlier in their decision-making process to expand, grow, or relocate. And the second is to use new and creative strategies to be able to reach those companies. I'm just curious, are either of those a priority or a challenge for you at the moment? And if so, how much? That's a great question. So I got it from LinkedIn. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it's, sorry, go on. John.leder@seattle.gov. Okay, sounds like it's an appropriate John to call you on your personal number.
Yeah, no, it isn't. But what you're pitching.
Yeah, John, how about we, I mean, I'd love to send you an email, but I think what would be better is if we could book maybe 15 minutes next week when I'm not cold calling you out the blue. And then
I'd rather read what you have to say versus in order for me to determine whether it's appropriate to have a further follow-up. So let's start with the email.
Okay, sure, John. Got it. I'm going to send you an email. I'll put just called you, and if you could reply and just confirm that you got it, and then yeah, I can put some times, and you can, yeah, we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Bye.
Wow, our first conversation right out the gate. Love that.
Second one.
Second dial of the day. So what was the story here with what's the story there with John? I heard a few things from my side. Number one, hitting you with the classic, how'd you get this number? Which is, it's 2023. If people don't understand that, like, everyone's personal data is out there, like, it blows my mind, Charlotte. Charlotte, does it not blow your mind that people still are like, how'd you get my cell phone number that's on every email I've sent for the last 5 years? How could you find that number?
I think actually I actually got it from Lucia, but I just said LinkedIn. And you know, a lot of people that I call are quite sort of they're older, they're sort of 50 plus, you know, so they're not into technology as much. So I haven't had that I've had that objection. How did you get my number? Several times. But this is like a very recent one. So I think that's, you know, a person that's not used to being called on their cell phone is going to say that, right?
Yeah, I guess, you know, one of the things, it's like I don't know about you, but like I have what's it called? Credit Karma. So Credit Karma tells me all the time that like every password I have has been compromised in a breach. You know, my wife and I, we get letters in the mail, just checks from settlements of like companies we've worked with that get data breaches, and they send us a $5 check or whatever. So I know like basically every bit of Kevin Hopp's information, including probably my social and everything, is just out there. Like
it's out there,
it's all out there. Like you just know it's out there. It's 2023. Everyone has everything. So a suggestion for you: next time someone says that, what I like to do is I like to put them into a bit of cognitive dissonance. Now, the cognitive dissonance is by saying, hey, I got this off of a public database. I'm sorry I'm calling your cell phone unexpected. Is there a better way to have a conversation with you?
Yeah, I like that.
Now, that's cognitive dissonance, because what's the answer to that question? No, there is no better way to have a conversation with them, right? So they're going to be like, no.
Exactly. That's a great one.
Because then, so we want to put them on ice for a second, and then we redirect immediately back to the point that we're talking about. And for me, that works more times than not. Just to get them, you got to get them off of that frame of mind, get them thinking a little differently right away about that.
Yeah.
But good job. That was a really solid one. That's a warm follow-up. I would call that a warm follow-up, where you can send that guy a very targeted email. He probably won't respond to the email, but we can follow up with him again and again and again, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, he said like send an email, and you know, I did try to say, oh, you know, I don't want to just send you an email. Why don't we just book? So you pushed into that sort of let's book the call, but I felt resistance from him, so I thought I'm actually going to say, okay, I'll send you an email, put some times in there, and you know, rather than push him any further.
Totally. Which is a great idea. The number one thing to do is always push for the call, but some people respond via email. Sometimes I get ahead of that, the normal back and forth of, oh, send me an email. Okay, I'll send you an email. All right, cool, bye. I get ahead of that by saying, I'll send you an email, but the last 3 people that told me to do that never got back to me. Are you going to be different?
Yeah. Or usually, you know, if I send you an email, are you going to, you know, often when I do that, it's just a way to get me off the phone, right? It's a nice way. It's a nice, polite way to say, I don't want to hear from you again.
That's right.
Are you going to respond? Yeah, it's a great one.
All right, I'm jumping in the queue here. Now I'm jealous. That was a really good call. Hoping that I can get a good call as well. So do you find, do you do cold calls? I know right now it's evening where you are. Do you do cold calls to Europe?
Not in the evening, no. So normally if I'm calling, say, Pacific, so San Diego, your time, I would, you know, there's some evenings where I do this time because it's a good time. It's AM. But normally I call at 3 p.m. Actually, hold on a second. I think I'm not dialing. It is I'm having a technical issue. Please save the outcome. Okay, right. Save and dial next. Perfect. There we go.
Hey, this is Kevin with Silver Skies. Is this Gerardo? Hey, Gerardo. once again, my name's Kevin. I'm calling with a company called Silver Sky Technologies. I know I caught you out of the blue here. Do you have a second and I can tell you why I'm calling? Well, look, if you're busy, if your head's down something else, Gerardo, I don't want to. You're always busy, but yeah. Awesome. All right, Gerardo, the reason I was reaching out at Silver Sky, we specialize in helping businesses like yours develop a proactive cybersecurity posture. What was that? All right, cool. That was Gerardo. We're going to call him not a phone lead. So not a phone lead is a disposition that I have for people like Gerardo. Gerardo bullied me through my intro, wanted the call to be on his terms immediately as soon as I popped into his ear. I was very polite. I was very calm. He was not. He was very rushed. And I said, hey, I don't want to have an ambush conversation. He said, tell me what this is about right now. As soon as I mentioned the word cybersecurity, he says, I'm not interested, and hung up in my ear. So I'm one of the only people that I've heard talk about this on LinkedIn and kind of the training world. Like I have this philosophy that not everybody can be sold to via phone, right? And you push, like, I want to sell to Gerardo via phone. I want to connect with him via phone. If I'm going to push that, I'm going to lose. I don't want to lose. I want to win with Gerardo, but I'm going to put him as not a phone lead as a disposition, which will take him out of my cadences, out of my calling cadences, because Gerardo is not going to do business on the phone.
Yeah.
Right? For whatever reason. Now, there's LinkedIn, there's email, there's all these different ways I can talk to other people in his company and get referred to him, via email, via a channel where he will interact without being an angry badger in my ear. But not a phone lead is something that I'm a huge fan of marking for people that are rude, quick, and don't give you the time of day. And it's just somebody where we identify their human nature is they're not going to do business on the phone.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And you save yourself a lot of hassle in the future.
That's right.
Let's go.
All right, I'm back in the queue.
124.
You got 124 left to dial?
Yep.
Love it. Love it. I've got 154 in my list. Hopefully won't get through all of them.
Hi, Bo. This is Charlotte from Investment Monitor. We've never met. I'm probably catching you in the middle of something. Okay. I totally get it. Is there a better time to call you? Yeah? Sure. Bye. He was in the middle of something. He's like, I'm in the middle of something. I've got a deadline. I was like, okay. I'm gonna push it.
Then why are you picking up the phone?
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a great one.
Well, so, I don't really train SDRs to say that or people who are on the phone to say that because it's rude. It's rude to, like, call somebody and, like, make them.
You could say something like, I hope you don't mind me saying this. What made you pick up the phone? Takes the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah. Hey, Steve. Kevin with Silver Sky here. How you doing? Yeah, my name's Kevin. I'm with a company called Silver Sky Technologies. I know I'm catching you out of the blue here. Are you heads down on something, or do you have 1 minute to talk? Oh, no way. So this is Steve Kaiser, right? You're retired? Oh, fantastic. All right, Steve, I hope you enjoy your retirement. I hope you're playing a lot of golf. That's what I have planned for my retirement. Love that. All right, Steve. Sorry, I don't know how you ended up here. You were last involved in IT over at Midwest Ground Covers. Oh, okay. There are other guys retiring. So, Steve, maybe you are the guy I want to speak to. Silver Sky Technology, we're a managed cybersecurity provider. Do you guys use a partner like that? Okay, and you guys are in yeah. Okay, you guys are in a long-term relationship. Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Well, Steve, thanks for the information. Do appreciate it. Like I said, all fairways and greens for you, man. All fairways and greens. Cheers. Okay, that was cool. So Steve,
Yeah.
Steve sounded a little older, and then he said, kind of right away, he's like, "Hey, I'm at a luncheon for a colleague who's retiring," and then he followed that up by saying, "And I'm retired."
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
So this is a really good example of just because you pop into the ear of the wrong person. You notice I said Steve Kaiser, like I confirmed his name, right? So now that I confirmed his name, which by the way I felt okay doing because I know he's retired. You know, I'm like,
yeah.
I felt a little bit more okay saying it on the broadcast. So, anyways, I confirmed his name, and then I took that opportunity to like confirm that I'm talking to the right Steve Kaiser that was at this company that I'm trying to reach, that I'm trying to learn about. Because right now there's a big gap. What's the gap? Here's me trying to sell cybersecurity. Here's what they're doing today. I don't know what's in between. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know their environment. I don't know who runs it. So I shifted my gears from trying to get Steve to be the one to set a meeting with to talk about this. And I said, Steve, help me understand. What are you guys doing for cybersecurity? Right? And when I talked about cybersecurity, he said, oh, okay, yeah, cybersecurity. Yeah, we have an outsourced firm. Just early or late last year, we signed a 5-year agreement with a different provider.
Yeah, so you got some great nuggets.
I just bridged that gap.
Yeah.
I went from 0 to 1. I went from not knowing anything about what his company is doing to knowing exactly what I need to know to prioritize this company in my outreach. If you're in a 5-year agreement, if you're barely in year 1 of a 5-year agreement, the odds of you changing are very, very low.
Yeah. So
I'm going to put this one as a good no nurture. Good no nurture is what I call that. I took a note on that. So, ooh, the phones are hot today, Charlotte. The phones are hot. I like this. So, question for you while the phone's ringing. So when interesting. You gotta love when people's voicemail is like Jonathan Clark. You know, like their first name. Like, thought it was him.
Ringing.
So you call Europe. Like, is cold calling? Are the rules the same? Like in the United States, it's like open season. Like anyone can call anybody. But aren't there certain cultures in Europe that like don't do cold calling?
Just left a voicemail. So I could repeat that question again.
So I guess my question for you is, aren't there cultures in Europe that view cold calling as like very rude?
I would say I haven't come across it myself. I mean, Germany is a country where, you know, they invented this GDPR, data protection, which is quite stringent. So if somebody has opted not to be contacted by cold call, then if you call them and, you know, that's a violation of that. I actually like calling, you know, some of the more traditional European countries because they do still pick up the phone. You know, they do. I've never had an incident where they've said, like maybe 1 or 2 people have said, look, don't cold call me anymore. I'm like, fine, but there isn't, you know, any. I think getting through to people, there's no real difference with North America.
Okay, interesting. I asked because I feel like it's just less common. Like I don't see a lot of, maybe this is just because I exist in a bubble on LinkedIn, but I don't see as many like French technology companies or, you know, German or Dutch or whatnot talking about cold calling culture. Like I know it's a thing in England and the British Isles. I'm sure cold calling is kind of accepted practice, and I actually have some friends that are British and have talked about, oh yeah, we make cold calls all the time here. But I didn't know if it was a thing in, you know, some of the more traditional European companies like France and Spain, for instance. Because like in Spain, don't you guys have siesta every single day?
In the small like towns, like the pueblos, I think people do. But in cities like Madrid and Barcelona, no. So yeah, you wouldn't want to cold call somebody in Spain between 2 and 4 p.m. because that's the lunch hour. So technically, but I don't know. I mean, if you call somebody's cell phone, they're probably going to answer you, regardless of the hour. So I would say, some people say, oh, this is the best time for me to cold call in Spain, between 11 and 12 or something in the morning. But I wouldn't, if you're calling from a different country into Spain, like say the US, I wouldn't necessarily say it has to be this, I have to call at this hour every day, or, what I do find though in Europe is it's more difficult to get people's information. So, you'll go on the website, like I work with governments, economic development. I can't find people's contact details. Like in North America, it's if I can't get them on Lucia or Apollo or Zoom Info, I can find them on the website, right? I can usually find a number.
Hey,
I can usually find an email.
Guy, how you doing today? Hey, is this Kamal? Hey, Kamal. Kevin with Silver Sky Technologies. I know I'm calling you out of the blue here. Sounds like you're out and about. Do you have a minute to chat? No, I mean, I was hoping to have it's just basically a cold call, right? I was hoping to have a conversation back and forth about stuff, but if you're busy, focused on something else, then I reach out another day. All right. She was busy. So one of the things I try to do is, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like, I didn't know when someone was going to pick or not, but one of the things I try and do is be very defensive of my time, right? So that was a lady who picked up. It was the right person, and I could tell, right? So this is a skill that I know Gen Z and millennials have a better ear for than some of the older generations. And it's just my observation, right? Because I train mostly late millennials and Gen Z folks. And
okay.
You can tell when you're talking to somebody and they're doing something else. You can always hear the background. You can always hear that, like if someone's driving a car, you can always hear that, like the hum of the car noise in the background. You can hear that. You can hear when they're doing something else. So I heard immediately that she was like very close to the phone. So she picked it up like this, but she was also doing things. I heard like a car door close. I heard, some footsteps. Yeah. So you call that stuff out, because those are the little things that if you do a lot of cold calling, right? If you're doing a serious amount of cold calling where you're trying to have 15 to 20 conversations a day with targets in your market, which everybody should be doing. 90% of people don't. But if you're serious about having conversations, those are the things that are going to confound your results. Now, what do I mean by that? I call this concept the false negative. What's a false positive? It's an incorrect assumption that something's good. A false negative is the other way, right? Which is Kamal is going to tell me she's not interested. She's all good. Thanks for the call right away. And then I might say, oh, well,
because she's distracted. Yeah.
She doesn't need cybersecurity. She has all of her business challenges solved. She has no problems. Good. She's great. And I'm going to mark that in my CRM. Kamal's company, they are perfect. Wrong. It's a false negative indicator. It's just that she's busy. She's not paying attention, right?
Yeah.
So I'm big on that. I don't know if you are.
Yeah, and those kind of people, you call them maybe a week later and they've completely forgotten who you are, right?
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. No, I leave her in the cadence. I'll actually call her tomorrow. I'm a big fan of having a smaller list that you call once a day. So if you're trying to reach somebody, try and reach them. Like seriously, like call them every single day. Because you're using technology, it's just 2 clicks anyways, right? Matthew Herring is a really good point. I'm not going to kick that lead out of my system forever. I'm just going to kick
Great. I know you're not expecting my call. Do you mind if I take a few moments to tell you why I'm calling, and you can decide if it makes sense if we should continue speaking? So typically, speaking to economic developers like yourself at cities similar to Panama City, Florida, they're having several challenges. They're attending too many events to actually meet with companies that would turn into projects and jobs for their region. And they're losing out to competitor locations as well for job creation and investment. I'm just curious, how do either of these challenges affect you and your team at the moment? Great. Sounds well. If everything's going really well, probably shouldn't make any changes. Curious, who are you working with at the moment? So, when you're looking to get to companies that could invest or expand or relocate, are you using any kind of external lead generation firm?
Yep, we have
Next site. Oh yeah, I've heard of them. They're really great. So sounds like that's going really well from what you said before. Perfect. Well, yeah, I mean, if you probably want to stick with those guys. If you're not having any issues in attracting, keeping jobs and growing your projects, then yeah, you don't need to do anything at all. So yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a great question, Greg. So my name is Charlotte. I'm calling from Investment Monitor, and we've worked with what I thought might be interesting for you. We've worked with some locations like Florida Power and Light, Jobs Ohio, Charleston Regional Development Alliance, and they were like you. They were doing really, really well, and they realized that around about like 92% of the pipeline just wasn't converting into projects. So we helped them to address that without them having to attend so many events and trade shows.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, you're welcome to
Yeah, I've got your email, but typically, sometimes when people ask me to send them an email, it's sort of difficult to know what to put in that email. What I'm going to suggest to you, Gray, is that we have a 15-minute conversation next week when I'm not cold calling you out the blue. And then, I can show you the case study for Charleston that I was just mentioning, and then we can decide if this is relevant for you or not.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy with what we have right now.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And if it's easier for you, because it sounds like you're in the middle of something, I can hear a bit of noise in the background. I'll put some times for a call 2 weeks out from now, so that we don't have to schedule, because scheduling's half the battle. Sure, I'll do that. Thanks for your time. Bye.
Okay. The live one, huh?
That was yeah. We're really happy with what we have. We're working with a company actually that I hadn't heard of. But he was like, just send me some info. And I was like, yeah, I want to do. Yeah, like normally, so I called it out and for what it was. I probably was a little bit pushy there. It's like I booked some time on the calendar, and then I sort of at the end was like, oh, well, why don't I send you an invite? I don't think I probably could have phrased that a bit better. And then we'll book something for 2 weeks out. But yeah, he was quite, everything's going really well. And what I think works in that situation is pushing the person. So you say to the person, look, if everything's going really well, then you probably don't need to make any changes. And I kept saying that. And he just was like, there was this pause. And he's thinking, well, hang on a minute. This is a sales call. He didn't say that, but he was thinking that, and I was like, why is she saying that I don't need to make any changes if everything's going really well? Surely she's going to push her, a product on me or a solution on me. And then I did mention a few locations. I was like, okay, look, everything's going really well for them. However, they, were still not converting a lot of their pipeline into projects and jobs. So, that was my sort of, okay, you can take this or leave this now.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. So this mirrors really well this concept, and I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this, by the way, they get that objection all the time.
Yeah, just send me some info. Everything's going really well.
Info, everything's good for us, right? Everything's good for us, right? So the idea that I always try to get my SDRs, and I talk about this in my online course, by the way, I got an online course on cold calling. There are two things that we can talk about in cold calls, and I use this metaphor I use this like example so that like the SDRs that work with me have seen me do this a lot. I go like this. What is this? These are business problems, right? Business problems. Oh, not enough people, not enough time, need more money, budgets are tight, blah, 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 business problems, right? But over here, on the other hand, are valuable solutions that we provide, that your company, that your service does. Now, on a cold call, you should only ever be talking about these things, these two things. Why? Because this is what leads to change. And what is sales? Change. What do salespeople get paid to do? Get organizations, people, money changing from one thing to another in a period of time. That is what sales does. You are a change agent. You are here to change people. Sales is not order taking, sales is not all that. Like sales is change. You are trying to inspire change. People only change for these two reasons. That's it. Because they have business problems they got to solve, and they know you have a solution for it. So in that case, you did a really good job of identifying that he doesn't have a business challenge. And it's important that like people understand that it could be either. Because if you just call and you simply talk about problems, a lot of people, number one, don't want to talk about their problems. And number two, they're not going to admit it to someone they don't know on the phone. So instead of losing to the status quo, kind of switching like you did to saying, well, here's some ways that we've actually helped companies or municipalities just like yours. Like showing that valuable solution. So business challenges and valuable solutions.
Yeah.
Chad has a question. Power dialing systems allow for international calling. I am pretty sure that Kixie does. I don't do any international dialing at all, so I am not your authority there, but I'm pretty sure Kixie does.
And I just want to say, by the way, that I don't have the company that I'm working for doesn't. We don't use a power dialer. This is my first time, and it's amazing. I love it. I'm getting, I'm not having to do this all the time.
There are two periods in my career. Before I used the dialer and after, and they are not the same. So what's that?
I've got to make notes like on my calls normally, but I don't need to with this.
The day that I saw my first outbound power dialer working is the day that I decided that I knew what I wanted to do. That was about 6 years ago, I want to say. 5-6 years ago, and ever since I've been basically in consulting, building companies around dialing, because it's like, oh my god, so you're telling me I don't have to do any of the things that I hate with calling? All I have to do is talk to people. I'm obsessed with talking to people, but I hate dialing the phone, and I hate phone numbers, and I hate all of that.
It's such you actually lose, I reckon, in an hour time block where I'm calling and I use Zoom. I use the dial pad right on my phone. I reckon I must lose about 20 minutes doing that, 20 minutes.
Super
and, within that hour with Kixie, I've made probably, 25, 30 more calls in that time. So this is what you guys can tell your bosses.
That's right. So check this out. Here's a question. It's interesting. It doesn't say which LinkedIn user, but what are more examples to pivot a conversation after a client is saying they're happy with a competitor?
So one of the things I would say, great, sounds like everything's going really well. You don't need to make any changes, stick with what you're doing. Stick with what you're doing, right? And then say, what do you like about what you're getting with your current provider?
Are you
No, I got quite a bit of voicemail. Sorry. So that's what I would do. Ask them, what are the top 2 things that they like, or 3 things about, if you want to be a bit more specific. And then when they give you the reasons, Wait, it wasn't the person that was listed, it was someone else.
Here you go. Why don't you hit pause so we can answer this question if you can.
Sorry, yeah, I've hit pause. So when they tell you sort of what they like, you might want to say something that introduce your solution in a way. Oh, did you know that, and mention a competitor, one of their competitors that you're currently working with. So have like a case study in your head and say, oh, they use, the same solution as you, but what they found about, what they like about our solution is that it does this. You always want to praise what they like about the competitor. So if they say, right, well, we like the competitor because, the data is great, or this is great, ABC is great about, the current vendor that we have. Praise that, say that, I think that's great. I've seen it, I've used it, and everyone else tells me the same thing. And then you want to say, right, okay, this is how we're different. So we can help complement what you're already using because we do X, Y, Z. Is this relevant on your radar?
100%. So Charlotte, to piggyback exactly.
It's a bit of feel, felt, found. I'm not actually a feel, felt, found. I think on a cold call, doing the feel, felt, found is good, but I tend to be more. I'm in two camps about it. I'm in two camps about it because I think it's that old sort of pushy, persuasive seller. But I think cold call, the dynamic's different, isn't it? You just want to have that book that next meeting and be able to talk, get into a deeper discovery.
Totally. The reason I like this is because it is a framework that a rep can use to think like FFF, like feel, felt, found, right?
Yeah.
It's just a mental heuristic, a way of oh, okay, we're talking about competition. Feel, felt, found is a really good way to do basically what you were saying, Charlotte. You're applying it in a way that's much more fluid, which is what every rep should aim to do, which is have a fluid way you overcome objections. Feel, felt, found sounds a bit like, I understand the way you feel. I understand that the solution you have in place is doing good for you. A lot of our best customers felt a very similar way about the solution they thought they had in place. What they found was, and this is
Hello, Tony Allen at the South
unique differentiator.
I'm sorry,
right?
I can't take the call right now.
Just to underline that point,
Number and message after the sound of the tone, and I'll return your call.
Charlotte, are you do you have that going through your ears?
When you've finished, you can hang up or press 1 for more options.
Right, hang up on that one.
Just dropped a voicemail.
Okay. We can hear that pretty loud in the audio, though. Is that going through your AirPods?
Yeah.
Okay. Wild. So just so everyone understands, this feel, felt, found is the idea of, instead of saying, oh, you use competitor X, they're terrible. You don't want to call someone's baby ugly. Have you ever heard of that term? Calling someone's baby ugly? You never call the baby ugly, even if it is.
Never.
90% of newborn babies are weird alien-like creatures, okay? So don't call their baby ugly. But instead, you have to be able to identify and nail on a differentiating piece between you and that competitor, okay? If you've never heard of the competitor, you're not sure that competitor does, we can ask a lot of questions, open-ended, asking about how they handle certain scenarios. But for me, it really does come back to being able to tell that story of how other people were using a similar sort of competitor and what they found, right? Their past state and their current state. That's huge.
Said I've got 109 left. 107.
I'm gonna try and get another one too.
Hitting a lot of voice.
Please record your message. When you finish recording, you may.
That tends to happen.
See if we can we got 15 minutes. Go.
Would love to get another meeting.
How many do you normally get in on the show? What's the benchmark?
I'd say, if we get 5-6 conversations, that's pretty good. 6 live conversations would be really nice. The record is 2 meetings booked. And I believe that was none other than Tom Slocum. Shout out to Tom.
Tom.
Yeah.
The Magic Jack customer you have called is unavailable to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hey, this is Kevin with Silver Sky. Jim, how you doing today? Not a good time. He said not a good time, and he hung up on me. Cool. Love that. Like, look, save me time, save you time.
Did he hear you say not a good time?
No, he hung up immediately. He said that in my ear. He's like, not a good time, and hung up like in a second, which is fine. I'm using a process that I will get right in front of him next time I dial this list. No problems. No need to ever force anything. Nick, how you doing today? Kevin with Silver Sky Technologies. I'm with a company called Silver Sky Technologies. Did I catch you with a minute to have a quick conversation here, or are you heads down on something else? Well, I noticed, are you still over at Proven IT? Fantastic. I guess one of the reasons I'm reaching out here, we've been trying actively to expand our partner network, and we work with a wide range of what we call PSDs. Some of them are shops very similar to yourself that provide IT services of all sorts and shapes. Do you guys have a reseller program or a partner network program? Okay. Do you guys ever find yourself in situations to have conversations about cybersecurity? I'm on your website and I'm not really seeing a cybersecurity component. Aha. Do you know who I would want to reach out to potentially to share kind of what Silver Sky does different? Right. Well, just to be clear. Yeah. Yeah, so just to be clear, I'm not selling anything. We don't sell directly to IT partners like yourself. We would partner, right? And that partnership would allow you guys to introduce us to your customers, vice versa. Okay. So it's not like a. Okay. Makes sense. Okay, well, I'm going to shoot you an email with our information. Maybe you can forward it to the right person. Is that fair? Awesome. Talk to you later. Cheers. Okay, so interesting wrinkle. This guy ended up in my list, right? This is a list of folks that are in the IT field. He happens to work at an IT reselling company. So not every sale is the same. Not every cold call is the same. Not every person out there is someone you should be selling directly to. For my client, Silver Sky, they actually do a large amount of revenue, like 80%, like a lot. I don't know the official numbers. A lot of revenue through the partner channel. So this company is an IT reseller that resells everything, printing management, cloud communication network, output management, telecom. They would be a good partner channel opportunity for us. But that guy was very defensive, and he kind of threw me into a bundle with every other person. It's like, oh, I get 10 calls a day, I get 30 emails a week from solicitors. What do you think of that term, solicitor? I really don't like the term solicitor.
Where was this? Because in the UK, a solicitor is an attorney.
It's a lawyer. Right?
Yeah. But when you solicit something, it doesn't have a good connotation yet. I don't know why in the UK an attorney is called a solicitor, but I agree. I think it's like you soliciting information. Something wrong with it, right? I actually had somebody pick up when you started your call, and I was like, I gotta hang up.
You can call him right back if you want to. We call that the double tap here on the show. The double tap.
I've saved and continued, so I don't know if it goes back.
No, it won't go back to that person right away, which is a good thing actually. But let's keep dialing. Let's try and get a meeting here. That'd be great. On the show.
I tell you what, I don't like getting is automatic voicemails that are not personal, because you just don't know if you're reaching the right number.
Yep. That is annoying for sure.
The person has a voicemail box that's not been set up. It's like, what?
I do like that voicemail has come so far, right? I'm old enough as a millennial that I remember we used to have a voicemail machine. The answering machine was an actual machine. And all the Gen Z people listening are like, what? Are you serious?
You used to press the button, yeah.
Yeah, and there was a tape inside.
And you used to say, like, oh, I'm not at home at the moment. And then everyone was like, you can't say that, because, you know, we didn't have cell phones when I was a kid. So we had, like, the phone attached to the wall.
Yeah.
And then
now the beauty of it, in my opinion, the beauty of the evolution of technology is Apple will just take it. I don't know for Android. I have an Apple phone, but Apple will just take it and transcribe.
Yeah.
It'll transcribe any voicemail that you leave. So it's basically like dropping a text message. You know what I mean?
Actually, today, a lady that I called earlier, she said, oh, instead of leaving a voicemail, send me a text. Send her a text. I thought that was quite cool.
But did she respond to the text? Probably not, right?
She responded to my email.
Yeah. So I've gotten that a few times, and people say that when they think that you're not a salesperson. But for me, 9 times out of 10, when they realize you're a salesperson, they're like, oh, they don't respond.
Please leave your message for 202841115.
I sent her a LinkedIn message as well. So she responded there, and then she responded to the email. It's like, I can't find your email. So I sent it to her again. She's like, okay.
Sorry, this is Lyman. Currently not available. Can you please leave a message? Thank you.
Just leave your message after the tone.
Okay, I've just called someone in Lithuania. We went to voicemail.
I am ringing on my side.
Hi, you've reached the voicemail of Rachel Clark from the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority. I'm not able to take your call at the moment, but if you leave me your name, number, and a brief message, I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for your call.
It's really loud. I can hear your phone ringing. Can you hear it ringing right now for me?
No. I might turn the volume down. Hang on.
Come on. Wow. A lot of these are going straight to voicemail.
Yeah, same here.
The bummer ones, the ones that really bum me out, are the ones where it rings twice and then it goes to voicemail, because you know they looked at their phone and they hit the silence button on the side. And you're like, come on, man, you don't want to talk to me?
I just realized I had a few European numbers in. Hi, I'm looking to speak with Wanda Profit. Sure. Can you tell her that this is Charlotte Loyd from Investment Monitor? Yeah. Investment Monitor. Couldn't hear me. Investment Monitor. Probably haven't heard of it. Okay, so I've got, I'm outside the US, so it's +34. Yeah. Yeah, sure. I was calling her about losing projects to competitor locations. I'm hung up on me. We're not interested.
Yep. So what's interesting is like what I teach now. I don't know if you have a different kind of way of thinking about this, but what I teach SDRs is to never tell someone who's not the target what this is about. Meaning,
so she passed the phone on to Wanda. So I had the gatekeeper.
Oh, it was the target.
And then Wanda came on because I could hear her in the background going, "Who is this? What's it about?" And then she picks up the phone.
Oh, it's one of those. Okay, so it wasn't the gatekeeper that you told that. It was
in the beginning.
Yeah. And then she passed it to the target. Because one of the mistakes that like early reps make is they like pitch anybody. They'll pitch anybody who like picks up the phone. It's the gatekeeper that
what do you typically say when you get a gatekeeper? So you just say, "Can you?" I always like normally I'd say like, "How can you?" Hey, this is Charlotte from Investment Monitor. Wanted to speak to Wanda Profit. Are you able to help me?
Yeah, I would say that. So there are two big strategies that I use when it comes to getting the gatekeeper to cooperate with you. I think that's the way to say it, right? I think the first is to be very direct, and very direct does not sound like this. Hey, I was hoping to talk to Charlotte. Do you know if Charlotte's available? Being very direct sounds like this. Hey, it's Kevin for Charlotte. Thank you. Like, whoa, right? Like, okay. Okay, right? Like that's like the vibe that you give on the phone. It's Kevin for Charlotte. Just that's not rude. It's not false. It's not lying. It's not Charlotte's expecting my call. It's Kevin for Charlotte.
Yeah, it's abrupt and it's to the point. I like that.
That's how lawyers talk. That's how important
and
talk.
It implies that it puts you. I mean, you're never below the person that you're speaking to. This is what I always say to people on a cold call: is you go in thinking that you're below that person, and I did for a very long time. But yeah, the authority in your voice is like, hey, I'm the same as the person that I want to speak to, which you are, So
yes, exactly. And the other is to take the long game approach, where if you're not getting through after a few different times of talking to the same gatekeeper, I do advise getting to know the gatekeeper and saying, hey, is this Steve again? Or is this Janice again? Yeah, Janice. Hey, look, I've called a few times here and I'm only reaching out because it's part of my job. And I honestly think I can have a good conversation here. Between you and me, am I ever going to talk to them on the phone? And if you like lean forward and have this like honest conversation, more times than not, they will tell you straight up, yeah, actually, if you call during a time when they're available, I will pass you through. Or they'll say, no, it's my job to make sure that no one ever gets through on this number. So that just tells you as the caller, cool, this phone number, not going to work to talk to this target, period. Now I can move on. Now I can either try and find another number, a cell phone number. I can use email, or I could use LinkedIn, or I could send them something in the mail. You could do something else. But identifying what channel people communicate most frequently in is one of the tasks that sales development is tasked with, right? So if you can identify that, it's a small win in itself. Well, Charlotte, it's about time for us to end the show. Wanted to say thank you so much for coming on Hop On Calls. For everybody that's listening here, check out the podcast. Morgan Jangram was on last week. An episode dropped today. We got another episode dropping on Thursday. Charlotte's podcast is going to be dropping next week. It's always a week behind, and a shout out once again to our sponsor, Kixie. Charlotte, talk about your experience with Kixie. Has it been good, bad, amazing, terrible?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Can't recommend it more. And this is someone that hasn't used an auto dialer before.
There you go. I love it. Well, Charlotte, what what way can people connect with you? What can people do to follow you? Just LinkedIn, or do you have a fan club? Do you have a newsletter? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Charlotte Loyd Sales. I'm also on TikTok, Charlotte Sales Tips. Yeah, Charlotte Sales Tips. So I do put different cold call tips on there. I've got a newsletter, so if you go to my new Charlotte Sales Shares, not Charlotte Seashells, somebody said to me. It's like, how dare you call it that? Charlotte Sales Shares. It's a weekly newsletter with a tip every week. So look at cold calling, all sort of different things to do with sales, but love cold calling. And yeah, that's where you can find me. So DM me on LinkedIn. I usually respond. I've got a lot of messages at the moment, but I will respond. If you send me a bad outreach, I won't respond.
All right.
And you'll know why.
Yeah. Do your homework if you're reaching out to Charlotte. But Charlotte, thank you so much for tuning in. I know it's late evening for you, so I'm going to let you get back to your Tuesday night. And everybody else, see you next Tuesday, same time, same place. Let's make some live cold calls. Cheers.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's been amazing.